So one of the things that we want to do during the concrete slab inspection is we always want to check the depth and the width of the footings. Those are detailed on the construction plans. We want to be careful so as not to disturb the footings, so I like to do them from the outside with a rigid tape measure, and I'll just stick that down and measure from the bottom of the footing to the top of the form board. And here I can see that that's about 20 inches, which is what the requirement is, and everything looks good here. One of the problems is that we have a bunch of fill dirt that collapsed into the footing. This all has to be cleaned out so that the concrete can go around and surround the actual steel. So this has to be cleaned out. When we look at our footing details on the structural drawings, it's going to tell us the size of the amount of horizontal reinforcing that goes into the footing, also the amount and location for the vertical steel reinforcing and the masonry fill cells. So this particular project has two number 5s installed on the bottom of the footing. There's some chairs here to give it the required 3 inches of clearance. That's what the steel's supposed to have as far as clearance from the earth. One of the other things is whenever there's these bars are about 20 feet long, sometimes 40 feet long, but typically 20 in the residential market. So where there's a overlap of the reinforcing steel, where we have two different pieces of steel that come together, the code requirement is to be 24 bar diameters of overlap. In this case, this is a number 5 rebar. That's a 5/8 diameter times 24, essentially runs into the common 24-inch overlap. So we've got a well over 24 inches right here. We just checked that with our little tape measure here, and we can see that that's good. They're tied together. The vertical reinforcing's tied together. These nails are how the subcontractor marks the vertical reinforcing locations. And then as they place that concrete, they'll pull these and adjust these a little bit to get them inside that wall and straight. So that's how we typically get started with our inspections out here on the new construction projects. We start off at the permit box. We make mental notes. Sometimes if we have to handwrite notes, we'll do that. This particular house is pretty simple for us. We noted it's a 20-inch deep footing, 12 inches wide, with two number 5 rebars. So after we review the plans, we got an idea what that footing's supposed to be. Then typically what we do is we first off just get a general consensus of what's going on, and then we'll walk around, we'll measure the footing depth. Typically this is my most common tool that I'm using at this point of construction, because I like the folding tape measure. It's easy to use. It's a little better than the Stanley tape measures that you have to pull out and lock. They're a little flimsy, so I like a little more rigid tape measure, and I'll use that to check the depth of the footings, the clearances, and things like that, and it helps me be able to take a picture a little easier. A good question that some of you may have out there is, how do I know whether that rebar is number 5 how do I know and what is the difference between a number 5 steel and a number 4 steel? And so here's how you do that, and here's the difference. A number 4 steel is it's 4/8 of an inch, and number 5 steel is 5/8 of an inch. So one's a little bit bigger than the other. So it's like electrical wiring. After you do inspections for 5 or 10 years, you can pretty much eyeball the different size wires just because of the experience. So reinforcing steel is the same way. I've been doing this a long time, so I can pretty well spot the difference between a number 4 and number 5. But for those of you that don't know how, here's a good example. All of the reinforcing steel is required to be labeled, and right here we can see that has a number 5. So this is a number 5 rebar, and it's visible in multiple locations. So all we got to do is look for that number and verify that it's number 5, and then we can conclude that the reinforcing steel is correct. Here's some of the horizontal bars. You can see they're a little bit bigger. This is a C5S, so this is a number 5 rebar. It's clearly labeled. When you walk around the footing, chances are you're going to find a spot where you can actually read that, and then you can just verify that that's correct. Worst case scenario, if you can't, you can always use your folding ruler to verify that it's roughly 5/8 of an inch. I like to project a little bit beyond the tip of the ruler, so I'll have the 1-inch mark on one side, and that gives me a little better indication that that's actually 5/8 of an inch. So that's another reason that I like the folding ruler, because if there's any question, I can use this tool to verify.